All right, so here's Bellinger, and this is great because most players, when the pitcher starts to break his hands, and let me zoom in here. Again, this is a 2-2 count, so we have a 2-2 count here on him. Just gonna zoom in a little bit more so we can see. But you'll notice he hasn't moved yet. The pitcher lifts his leg. Now the pitcher's breaking his hands. There's zero movement. He's not, I don't care if you're not striding, but you at least have to get into your back leg and your back hip. Okay, he still hasn't moved. The pitcher's arm is all the way down and back. Bellinger still hasn't moved. Okay, most players are starting to lift their leg. Well, in order to lift your leg, you got to transfer your weight into your back leg first. He hasn't done either of those. Now the pitcher's arm comes forward or up. So as his arm comes up and forward, Bellinger kind of bends his front knee a little bit. Like, okay, I'm getting ready to step. Now the ball's released and his foot is still on the ground. His heel is up, but his foot's on the ground. So at release, when the ball is out of the hand, it's definitely out of the hand. I can go back here. This is right at release, actually. Ball's coming out of the fingers. You need to be at the top of your stride. Okay? I don't care what your stride is, you have to be at the top of it. So all you have to do is come forward and down, or down, depending on what your stride is like. He's lifting it after the ball's released. So 2 frames after the ball's released, he finally gets his foot up, and now he's got to get his foot down in time by the time the ball's 10 to 12 feet in front of the plate and get his swing off. Okay, it's just way too. If we put a timer on it, it's probably a quarter of a second. Okay, where when you lift your foot and plant your foot, that number should be 3/4 of a second. 0.75. Okay, I'm going to write it here on the screen. 0.75 seconds from when you start to lift your foot to when you drop your foot. Okay, his is zero point 0.2 to 0.25. That's the fastest in Major League Baseball. Okay, so that's the fact. Like that's obvious. Some guys are a second. A lot of guys are 1 second, 0.9 seconds. Guys that have a little bit more of a slow, deliberate leg kick. Okay, so that's a number one. He's got to rush to this position. Essentially, what he's doing is he's waiting for the pitch and then making up his mind to step instead of stepping and reading the pitch while your foot's in the air, which is what everybody does. So he's making it so difficult. And I know I'm not the only one that sees this. I'm I would have to I would hope, but I'm pretty sure that the Dodgers see this and they tried to get him to do it, and he probably didn't want to do it or he couldn't do it when he got into a game. I don't know what the process was, but if somebody didn't see this, that would be a bit of a problem. Okay. Now we're going to see this. He stays on this ball. It's thigh high, middle away, and he shoots it in the left center field gap. Okay. So now let's get a little side view of this. Okay. Everybody's going to run around the bases. That's fun. Yay. Hitting's fun again. Take my elbow guard off. Okay. So now we get a close up view. I mean, you can really see he doesn't lift his foot until the ball's out of the hand. His foot doesn't come completely off the ground. And he doesn't have a ton of hand motion, right? He just kind of pulls him back a little bit and cocks him, but it's not bad. Now, if we look at, you can see, as he hits this ball, his hips are facing left field. He doesn't really get his hips through all the way, but we don't want to on this outside pitch. He brings his head down. That's fine. His grip looks decent. I don't see anything crazy with his grip. If we put a bat vertical angle on this pitch, here's the knob. Here's the barrel. He's at 29 degrees. That's fine for a pitch that's at the top of the thighs. There's nothing wrong with that. After he makes contact a couple frames, his vertical bat angle is still pretty close to that. It's not exactly 29 degrees, but it's 21 degrees. So that's 8 degrees different. That's why he tops balls to the pull side, because that barrel doesn't stay on that same plane as he finishes the swing. Okay, and then if we look at the side view here, okay, you're going to see, again, he's rushed. There's nothing wrong with what he's doing with his hands. There's nothing wrong. It looks great in slow motion because it's slow motion. It looks bad when it's fast. Okay, but you can see how narrow he is when he lands. Okay, you look at his head. If I draw a vertical line from his head, it's closer to his front foot than his back foot. I'm not sure there's another major league hitter that does that. Okay, most guys, the middle of their head is over their back hip flexor. So he's kind of forward with his head there. That's going to, make it very difficult to get down to pitches. And then you can see his hands are kind of going, but his back knee, his back heel still on the ground. You can see his back heel doesn't come off the ground until there, which is a long time. Okay. And you can see how close his knees are. He's just very crunched up. And why is that? Well, it's because he moves late. If you move late, you gotta get your foot down. He gets to here, and he's probably like, oh, fastball. I better get my foot down. So he drops it early. But his front leg, in a perfect world, his front leg should be out probably 5 inches further. And that would allow this back knee to come down and in. But if you notice, his knees kind of just comes in. His heel doesn't get above his toes. See how his heel's like behind his toes? Every other major leaguer, their heel is up here, above their toes or even in front of their toes. So his spacing isn't good. He's not getting into his legs. You can see his legs are so close together. I want everybody to watch right at his front knee after contact. Look how his back leg, his back thigh pushes his front leg forward. That's why his follow through looks kind of funny, because there's just no room for that back leg to come through. Okay, so that's the body, right? And he's always been a little funky with that. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw the pitch plane. Here comes the pitch plane, probably about 5 degrees. Yep. But if we look at his barrel, okay, what do we talk about? We always talk about getting your barrel to the pitch plane about at your front knee. Perfect. Not back here. He doesn't hit the pitch plane back by his back hip. He gets on at his front knee. He's on it at his front, the middle of his front foot. He's on it right at his front toes. The problem is his front toes should be out further. So if I draw one more line about 4 inches in front of his front toes, is his barrel still there? Maybe, but you can see it's kind of coming off just a little bit. Okay. Now, if you look at his left arm, if he extended his left arm, if he got to here and then extended his left arm all the way through, who does that really well is Nimmo, by the way. Does that. He has a great extension. Then his barrel would stay on plane all the way to that last marker I just drew. So you can see he kind of holds onto it with his left arm. So he could stay on plane longer if he wanted to. He didn't need to here. He hit it. But it's not what you would think it would be with him. With him, you would think his barrel, he strikes out a lot. He swings and misses a lot. You would think his barrel would kind of, come down here underneath and then come up this way. But it doesn't. It kind of comes right in here. It's very shallow through the ball. And that's a swing plane that should play. So that would be the scary part of his swing is how are you struggling that much? How are you striking out that much when your barrel actually is on plane for a decent amount? Well, the problem is this pitch is up. If you get this pitch down, towards the bottom of his thighs or right above his knees, he can't be on plane as long because he can't get down with his legs. His feet are too close together. So then on pitches down, he's got to drop his barrel a lot more and then swing up a lot more to get to it. So where he's a guy that is overcompensated to hit the pitch up, now if you were a pitcher, now would be the time maybe throw him something up at his belt to start the at bat, and then you would try to go down because he's not going to be as consistent on low pitches just because his lower body isn't getting there. So recapping, really quick, it's rhythm and timing. He's got to change his timing. He's got to change his rhythm. He's got to start sooner. He's got to start. I went back to the very beginning of the video. When the pitcher breaks his arms, he's got to start to pick up his foot so that when the pitcher releases the ball, he's at the top of his stride. That's number one to give himself a chance. Then hopefully he can get wider and down and into his legs a little bit more, and that'll get him to cover more of the strike zone in a more consistent manner.